Hi everyone, my name is Deanna and I just recently finished my undergrad with a BS in psychology on the pre-med track. Now to the good stuff. Why medicine? Well, for me, ever since I was younger, I always loved my science classes and I always loved helping people. Now, is that enough to make me want to go to pre-med? No, but it led me to know that I wanted to be in the medical field. Now, after much consideration, shadowing, life circumstances, I knew that becoming a doctor was what I wanted to do. And I specifically want to work with the underserved communities, such as the African Americans, to let them know that they have a voice and that they will be heard. And I want to encourage them to establish trust in medical providers.
Hi everybody. I just want to take a moment to invite you guys to our channel, Syd and Dee Road to MD. I am one half of the channel. I'm Syd. And I just want to take a minute to tell you guys just a little bit about myself and also to tell you a little bit about how this came about and why I'm passionate about this journey. So my name is Sydney. I come from a family of five. I go to University of Michigan. Actually, I just graduated in December with my Bachelor of Arts in Spanish with a minor in writing. I'm pre-medical and I'm applying to medical school in 14 days. So that's exciting. And my passion in medicine really came from the things that my family went through in the recent years. I wanted to be a doctor before, but I think that it really solidified my passion and showed me that this walk is really for me and that I'm really called to do this and to be in this position and to be in these spaces of power, really. Um, I think before a few years ago, I didn't really have any situations that really defined me or defined who I was, but about 2 or 3 years ago, my family went through a very trying time. We lost our house. My dad lost his business. We lost a lot of our family friends. A lot of the people who came around, who we helped, they were no longer there. And all of this was as a result of my dad's addiction. He was addicted to crack cocaine. My dad was a businessman, so when this came about, it was all to our surprise. It felt kind of devastating finding that out. What I found out was I was driving his car. He had came home. As a child, I remember him kind of going missing sometimes, and um, yeah, he would call on the second or third day, and he would sound kind of out of it, maybe a little bit drunk, but I just thought he had went away. I knew I was worried, but nobody else was, so I was just kind of got used to it. One day he came back, and I was supposed to go somewhere in his car, and he didn't want to let me get in the car, and it was a very odd moment. He was like, let me just clean it out first, and I was like, no, like, go in the house, like, I'll go, I'll clean it out wherever I'm going, whatever I need to do, like, I can clean the car out. And he just wasn't accepting it as an answer. He insisted on cleaning the car out. So I was driving, and there was a kid in the car and my ex-boyfriend, and the baby that was in the car, she just kept crying, and I didn't know why. And we pulled over, and my ex was like, looking at her, reaching over the back seat, and he was like, pull over the car. And I was like, why? And he was like, just pull over. And at the time, I was dealing with somebody I probably shouldn't have been, so he was familiar with these types of things. And in the back seat, he saw like a little baggie, like maybe this big, and that baggie was obviously a bag that had been used for crack cocaine. And he was like, the only thing that come in these bags this small are drugs. And at that moment, it all just added up. It was a really emotional moment. Things started to make sense as to why certain things were happening in my life, why we were losing certain things, why we were losing certain people. And at first, I didn't believe him. I was like, not my daddy, not my daddy, because my dad was never absent in my life until this point in time. And so I called my dad's friend, and I called a few people, and I asked them, like, is this true? And they all were like, yeah, you didn't know? We all knew this been happening, your whole life. And I guess my dad really was doing a good job of hiding it. But I don't want to butcher his character, because my dad was a very good person. He helped a lot of people while he was here on this earth. But um, later I realized that this was an issue that was bigger than him. It wasn't just a story of a man who got addicted on drugs, or a man who did drugs and was out in the streets and all those things. It was a struggle. It was a story of a man who was really struggling to keep up a lifestyle, struggling to take care of his family, struggling to beat the odds of black men. We know that in our society, black men, they got to overcome so much more than their counterparts. There's a lot of pressure on their backs to not be in these streets, to not be drug dealers, to not be deadbeats, to take care of their family, to provide all of these things. And my dad, he was up against all of that. And that put a lot of pressure on him, and he put a lot of pressure on himself to make sure that he took care of his. In the black community, we like to put men, when they make it out, we like to put them up on this pedestal and give them this pressure of pulling everybody else up with them. And although that's something that they should do, is help out the people you can, it's just that you got to help out who you can. And one of my dad's biggest fault is that he wants to help everybody. He wants to put everybody up with him. And in the end, people took advantage of him, and wanted to be that rock for his community, for his family, for everybody, really got the best of him. And so from that situation, there was a few times like I really, really saw that cry for help. One time I remember that we had left the house, and I came back and my dad was there, and the house was nearly empty. And he was sitting at this table and he was just crying. He couldn't stop crying. And I was like, Dad, like, what's wrong? And he was telling me how he wanted to end his life, and how he didn't think he wanted to do this thing called life anymore, how he thought that the pressure was too much, and how he felt like it was just time for him to move on. And he was crying, he was shaking, and I asked him, he looked really frail. I asked him, I said, when's the last time you eaten? And he said he couldn't remember. And that's when I realized, like, the pain is so strong that someone is yearning for a substance that's not good for their body, that they know is killing them, that they feel is killing them, but yet they're still going back to it, overeating, over drinking, over all of those things, just to get a moment away. And I realized that nobody does that without a reason, a real good reason. There are habits that we all have that we need to break. There are things that we all do that aren't right. But nobody subjects themselves to that kind of physical harm without a reason. And so I thought, like, the reason has to be so much greater. And from that situation, just seeing my dad went into his life and shaking, and he was at one point not really able to get the food into his mouth good because his hands were shaking so bad. And I went through that, seeing him in a mental hospital, and seeing him go to jail, and seeing everybody forsake him. And I realized that this isn't just my dad's story. This is the story of a lot of black men who are under a lot of pressure, a lot of black people, and don't properly seek mental health services. And I realized that in the communities where we come from, it's not cool to seek mental health services. It's not cool to go to the doctor. It's not cool to see a therapist. Like, that makes you weak where we come from. And I really want to change that, because I think that a lot of people in our community are suffering. A lot of people are crying out for help, and a lot of people are turning to the wrong people and the wrong things for help, because they just don't know. They don't know that going to the doctor that one time, or just talking to somebody or whatever, could have saved their life, can save their life still. I know that if my dad had known just how much hurt that he really was in, and that was okay to hurt, and that it didn't make him weak to seek help, and it didn't make him less of a father or a husband or a brother to seek help, and to say that you hurt and you need everybody around you to lift you up. If he had known that, I think he would still be here today. And so that's kind of the driving force for me. That's my why for medicine. But also through some other things that I did, I realized that our youth really need these things. Like, it's one thing for people like my dad to seek help and to try to help them, But our babies are coming up learning these things. They're coming up seeing people choose drugs. They're coming up seeing people choose the streets. They're coming up seeing people drop out of school and all of these things, and they need somebody to advocate for them. They need somebody to stand on their behalf and say, I believe you. I know that you're going to be great. I know that you can be great. You have this, this, and that in you. You are powerful. You are excellent. You are beautiful. They need somebody to pour into them and to uplift them, and also to educate them on the things that matter and the things that can really help them to succeed. And we know that by pouring into our babies' education, by pouring into their helping them get better physical surroundings and stopping all this geographic segregation in our communities, we know that those things lead to better health outcomes. And so for me, my passion is one, our babies, because I know that they are the future, and that by uplifting them, I uplift us all, because at the end of the day, that's the generation that's going to carry us all. That's just it. And two, I'm passionate about health disparities, because I think there are a lot of things that affect our communities that we as Black people and as a minority, we turn the other cheek to, with mental health being one of the number one things. And the reason we do that is because we lack resources, we lack the people to help us get those things, social networks, but more than anything, we lack the knowledge. And so I want to be an advocate for our communities, to educate them on the things that disproportionately affect people of color and people of low SES, so that people know that we can overcome these things. We are more than mental health. We are more than lupus. We are more than diabetes. We are more than all of these things that are labeling us and holding us back as far as our health. But in order to get on top of them, we have to know. We have to know what we're up against. And I really, really am in favor, and I'm an advocate for health promotion, and for doctors who don't just try to treat people based on their symptoms, but look at the individual as a whole, because we have so many people who go to the doctor or don't go to the doctor because they're afraid doctors won't believe them, or they won't understand what they're going through at home. Or we have doctors who completely ignore that. They look at you as a patient with diabetes and that's it, when this is more than that. We know that education levels and SES and jobs and all of these things, even family history, these things are predictors of health outcomes. So how can, as a physician, you only look at the symptoms? That don't even make sense. Like, I'm here to change all of that, because the way that our health system is doing things right now, the minorities are the ones that are suffering. We are the ones that are getting killed off. We are the ones that are dying off because of lack of knowledge and lack of care. And so that's why medicine needs me. Medicine needs me to advocate for our babies, to advocate for people of color, to educate people of color, to make sure that people come up feeling believed, feeling heard, feeling knowledgeable about what's going on with them. And so that's my why. And so on this channel, you guys can expect to see some more videos about medicine, my journey to medicine, taking the MCAT, going to med school, applying to med schools, interview, all of that. I plan to share all of that with you guys, and also some more things about health disparities, as well as some information about ethical things in medicine, some fun stuff, some story times, all of that. Like, I'm just here to be transparent, to share my story, and to take you guys on this walk with me as I grind for my white coat. So I hope that you guys enjoy, and welcome.
And we know that all things work together for the good to them who love the Lord and are called according to his purpose.